So, unless you've been living under a rock recently, you've probably heard of Arcane. With a budget that would make most animated series look like Happy Meals, animation that looks like eye candy, it's no wonder that people have been raving about Arcane. Especially since the series ended in a finale that was pretty good, but not exactly the same standard I was expecting, but I mean, it was fine. I don't know. Regardless of all of that, when doing an analysis on Arcane, it's pretty hard to know where to start. You have sister trauma, twink Jesus, French tragedies, the situationship breakup to dictator pipeline, try not to kill a kid challenge, impossible, and even things I can't speak on this platform. There are so many things to choose from when talking about Arcane. The only thing I wouldn't talk about is League of Legends. Well, good thing that doesn't exist, But the thing I want to talk about is Powder and Isha. Cause what better way to celebrate my return to this channel by talking about two children losing innocence? Oh, yeah, I should address that. Sorry I left for so long. I was busy with school life, junior year, high school, you know the drill. But I'm back, and hopefully I'll be back for a while. I don't know, if I don't make another video about this, I probably just got busy with school stuff again, I'm sorry. So let's start off with Vi and Powder, because in order to look at the present, we need to look at the past. Vi and Powder at the beginning of the series are really close, which makes it so devastating what happens to them later on. Vi in these early episodes is always giving Powder advice on how to be better. She's usually encouraging Powder, but she still is pretty protective of her. Vi is seen as a constant source of strength that Powder arguably latches onto. Being the youngest and always being bullied by Milo, Vi is really the only source of comfort we see that Powder has. They don't have any parents, Vander is still running the Undercity, it is busy, so Vi is mainly what's there for Powder. You could even see that a lot of the things that Vi does as hindering Powder just a bit. Obviously, Vi is a teenager, so she doesn't have correct parental issues, so she obviously is not going to be the best parent to a teenager. Vi allows Powder to do things that are really out of her wheelhouse and pretty dangerous, and she's always there to save her from any consequences that may come her way. But let's get into that later. One thing that is really important to know about Vi and Powder is that they have very different personalities. It's obvious that some ways they're similar, but Powder is very different from Vi. She builds things. Her agility is not as good as Vi, especially in these early episodes. She's very good at aiming things. Vi is obviously a much more close-range fighter and has a bit more of a higher maturity level, and Powder is a young, childlike girl with a longer-range fighting style. And these differences become especially clear when we see Vi leaving Powder's life. Powder, in some aspects, stops maturing as much. She still has her old rabbit toy, she's very reckless from time to time, and often has intense mood swings. So why is that? Well, a lot of it comes from her trauma, and the fact that she doesn't really need to grow up. Silco gave her a lot of protection, just like Vi did. He lets her run around to little with no consequence, just like Vi did, and she basically does not need to advance her maturity level when growing under Silco. That, combined with the traumatic instance, is the reason that Powder becomes Jinx. Her dependency on Vi, then Silco, is what causes her actions as Jinx. This is further backed up of what you see with Season 2, when you see she's not actually doing much for the people of Piltover because Silco is dead. And with Silco dead, she doesn't know what to do or who she is. Jinx can only be Jinx if she's depending on Silco, and without Vi. It was both her dependency on Vi and her rush towards Silco that caused her to become Jinx. So that's Powder/Jinx. What about Vi? Well, Vi, as we see in the beginning of the series, is trying her best to take care of Powder. Obviously, she's still a teenager, so she's just trying to work out some stuff, but It's obvious that she really cares for Powder and is trying her best, even though she might not be doing it as well as she thinks she is. It's also obvious from the beginning of the series that she desperately wants the Undercity to be a safer place, especially for her sister. She fights with Vander to try and get the enforcers out. She is constantly looking up to Vander as the leader of the Undercity. And she is obviously very, very, very mad at the enforcers for killing their parents. She obviously wants to change to the Undercity. But in a way, we can see how that affects her relationship with Powder. Because she's so focused on getting a better life in the Undercity, she doesn't focus on the life that she has now. She's always looking ahead, not what's at her. And in some ways, we can see how that hinders her a little bit. She's not as there for Powder as maybe she should be. Sometimes she acts very recklessly, and she just pushes Powder away in some of the worst ways, which we see influences Powder's decision to go and help anyway, and we all know how that turns out. Basically, we can see how the relationship from these two characters leads to a codependency, and when Vi inevitably breaks that codependency, Powder does not know what to do. She rushes into the arms of the only person she thinks will help her, and it leads her to becoming Jinx. So, how do Isha and Jinx fit into this? Well, Isha and Jinx are really interesting because they almost directly mirror Powder and Vi. Almost. Isha is characterized as way more independent than Powder ever was. We see her living on the streets alone before she meets Jinx without any help. She tosses herself into pretty dangerous scenarios, which, okay, to be fair, that is pretty Powder / Vi / Jinx coded. They all toss themselves into horrible scenarios. These are some impulsive people, okay? But to be fair, she is a lot more capable in these scenarios, I think. And she seems a lot more comfortable than Powder was, at least. But the really interesting thing about Isha is her obsession with Jinx. She literally just wants to be a Jinx clone. That's literally her entire personality. No other goals, no other aspirations, literally just Jinx. She loves the symbol that Jinx is, and she does all in her power to preserve that image. Jinx, however, by this point, is much more reserved than she was in the last season. Mostly, she doesn't want anything to do other than to protect Isha and Savika. She doesn't want anything to do with the symbol that Jinx is. She's just trying her best. If you haven't caught on already, the roles here seem to be flipped. Isha is a lot like Powder, but instead of craving strength or self-reliance, she craves Jinx's personality. And Powder is like Isha, but instead of craving Vi's personality, she wants to prove herself to be useful. It's literally an inverse in their wants and needs. They're foils to each other. And you can also see this with Vi and Jinx. Vi wants to be a pillar of strength for her siblings, same as Jinx. But the difference is that Vi wants social mobility. She wants to obtain better opportunities for her family. That's why she does things like breaking into Jace's apartment. That's why she insists to Vander that the enforcers need to stop taking over Zaun. It's another inverse. Jinx obviously doesn't want anything. She doesn't want social mobility. She wants things to stay the way they were. But Vi isn't like that. It's also an inverse here. And in both cases, we can see that it results in the loss of innocence, with Vi leaving Powder and Isha leaving Jinx. With the transformation to Powder into Jinx, and the transformation of Isha into dust. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I think what we see happens here is the ambitions of both characters getting the better of them. Isha's ambition to become Jinx, or to preserve the Jinx persona, is what leads her to try and ultimately sacrifice herself. And Vi's ambition to try and protect her siblings leads her to making some of the worst decisions and getting Vander kidnapped, which ultimately leads to worse things. Even for Powder, her ambition to be better and to help Vi is what leads her into becoming Jinx. It's a story of ambitions. Arcane is trying to show you what happens when you repeat history without correcting old issues. The names and situations may be different, but it's the same issue. This is more on a personal note. I had a teacher once who retired a couple years back. But even though I only had her for 1 year of high school, there's something she said on the first day of class that I do remember pretty clearly. She said, "I don't believe history repeats itself, but what I do believe is that history rhymes." And I really think that is what Arcane is trying to show us. The names might be different. Powder may be an Isha, Vi may be Isha, it doesn't matter. All that matters is that it's a similar situation. History rhymes.